to connect a region of over 600 more bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. Joining me today is from our EBC Vietnam Bureau. Hello, Charlene.
Hi, Alma. Hi, everyone. This is Charlene Navaja from your EBC Vietnam Bureau, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. President Duterte on Monday night said he wants children aged 10 to 14 years old to stay inside their homes despite the easing of age restrictions recently approved by the IATF.
A Russian social media star with millions of followers has been kicked out of Bali for holding a party on the Indonesian holiday island that broke virus rules, authorities said Monday.
A U.S. aircraft carrier group sailed into the South China Sea on a so-called freedom of navigation exercise, the first routine operation in the region under new President Joe Biden.
And Vietnam's twice-a-decade political transition begins Tuesday with the Communist Party poised to select its future leaders who will have to contend with an increasingly assertive China and ramped-up trade tensions with the United States.
First, in the Philippines, President Duterte on Monday night said he wants children aged 10 to 14 years old to stay inside their homes despite the easing of age restrictions recently approved by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. In a taped speech, the president said it's necessary to take the precaution of prohibiting children outside after the health department said that there were UK variant samples found in Mountain Province and La Trinidad, Benguet. Take a look.
I am compelled. It has nothing to do with the incompetence, not at all. Akin is a precaution because there was or is a strain discovered in the Cordillera na that is very similar to the strain dito sa United Kingdom. How it got there is beyond me. Hindi ko talaga bakit dumating doon. Workers are really competent enough to determine this situation existing. So, balik ko kayo sa bahay muna. And besides, yung 10 years old to 14, itong medyo matanda na mahirap ito i-manage. But itong mga 10, 11, 12, pwede na yan sila sa TV. Pasensya na po kayo. Mine is just a precaution. Wala itong takot lang ako kasi itong bagong strain strikes the young children. Itong original na COVID, hardly if at all, na wala kang marinig na may bata. Meron 1 or 2. And you can count it by the fingers of your hands. Kung ilan ang bata natin na. Pero ngayon, according to the studies, balita lang mali nitong United Kingdom, na nag-warning si Johnson, yung Prime Minister nila, that it can, that kind of affliction can walang limit sa edad kung ilan. So, it does not have any cut off there. So, just to be sure, and in our desire to protect our people, napilitan akong i-reimpose yung 10 to 14. Not at this time.
The president also urged the public to be religious in observing health and safety protocols such as wearing of face masks and face shields, frequent hand washing and physical distancing, as confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country reached 514,996 on Monday. While some Filipinos could afford getting treated for COVID-19, the president pointed out that there were many who could barely pay for hospital expenses. He also admitted that he could not impose draconian measures such as preventing everyone from leaving their homes since it would have a severe impact to the economy unless there is a plague.
Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said the mandatory completion of the 14-day facility-based quarantine for passengers arriving in our country will be replaced by RT-PCR test upon arrival and another test on their 5th day of quarantine. He also said that in case the result of their second RT-PCR test is negative, they will be taken to their respective LGUs and they will have to complete a 2-week quarantine at home.
Bawal pa rin ang lahat ng mga banyaga na manggagaling sa 35 bansang may travel restrictions hanggang katapusan po ng buwan. Sa mga dumating dahil sa medical at emergency cases, medical escorts kung mayroon ay sasailalim na ngayon sa applicable testing and quarantine protocols as described by the Department of Health. Alam niyo po, ang bagong protocols ay pagdating, PCR. Pag negative, quarantine. Sa pang-5 araw, PCR. Pag negatibo, i-endorso po sila sa kanilang mga LGU kung saan dapat sila ay mag-quarantine pa rin para makumpleto ang 14-day quarantine. Yan po ang buang sa mga darating na mga Pilipino sa mga lugar na merong new variant. Para sa mga detalye, mangyaring bisitahin ang website or Facebook ng Bureau of Immigration. Pagdating naman po sa testing at quarantine protocols para sa mga bansa kung saan mayroong travel restrictions dahil sa new COVID-19 variants, ang mga pasaherong ito ay itetest pagdating at i-quarantine hanggang makuha ang resulta ng subsequent test na i-administer sa ikalimang araw. Ngayon po, yung mga itetest sa airport, nakipag-ugnayan na po ang ating gobyerno na ang first test po pwedeng Philippine Red Cross, ang subsequent test yung PAL Testing Center po. Mandatory pa rin po ang 14-day quarantine, ha? Kung dati ay absolute base facility, kapag negatibo sa pangalawang swab test, pwede ang lokal na pamalahan na destinasyon ng pasahero ang magmamonitor ng remainder ng 14-day quarantine. Mga LGUs, naku, kinakailangan po natin ng tulong dahil kung hindi makukumpleto ang 14-day quarantine, baka kumalat po itong bagong COVID-19 variant.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health has confirmed the local transmission of the United Kingdom COVID-19 variant in Bontoc, Mount Province. To date, all identified cases with the UK variant can be epidemiologically linked to cases coming directly from outside the country or importation, or from specific cases or exposures that can still be identified or local transmission, according to the DOH in a statement. It said, however, that there was no string of evidence of community transmission of the B117 variant based on the criteria laid down by the World Health Organization. According to WHO standards, there's community transmission when there are, quote, appearance of large number of cases, occurrence of case clusters in multiple areas, and inability to link cases to known sources of infection. According to the DOH, of the 12 UK COVID-19 variant cases from Bontoc, from the total 17 UK variant cases in the Philippines, 7 were men, while 3 were children aged 5, 6, and 10. 11 of these 12 cases came from Barangay Samoki. The department said abdominal symptoms prompted the ROF to seek medical consult, and subsequent RT-PCR testing yielded COVID positive. So far, the DOH said the Regional Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit and local authorities were conducting backward tracing to determine how the cases in Bontoc got the UK variant. It added, however, that mutation was normal The DOH also gave updates on the other 5 UK variant cases in the country. The Quezon City resident who arrived from Dubai, UAE, has already tested negative for COVID-19 but is still undergoing monitoring. The DOH also said the 2 returning overseas Filipinos who returned to Manila from Lebanon aboard Philippine Airlines flight PR 8661 on December 29 were placed in facility-based isolation and were discharged from isolation on January 9 and 13. The 23-year-old male Calamba City resident who tested positive for COVID-19 on December 10, for his part, has since completed his mandatory isolation. The 22-year-old male from La Trinidad, Benguet, on the other hand, was asymptomatic and remains in isolation.
American biotechnology company Moderna firm says its COVID-19 vaccine is effective against the UK and South Africa variants.
Meanwhile, President Duterte on Monday night also challenged the critics claiming of corruption in the government's COVID-19 vaccine procurement to face him. The president said there were some individuals who accused his administration of anomalies in vaccine procurement since they could not get any kickbacks from vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. Let's listen in.
10 years old, even young. Merong iba dyan because wala silang nakuha kay Galvez, kaya wala man talaga, walang pera. Laway pa lang ito lahat. Conversation. Istorya. Meron na nagsabi may corruption o na they were able to obstruct or prevent corruption because of their timely alam mo, bulador ka. Mag-usap nga tayo. Tayo lang. Kung sino nagsabi niyan, please rise and be brave enough to say that you're the one. I'd like to talk to you. Tayo lang dalawa. Maski saan mo gusto, sa bahay mo, para medyo magandang usapan o hindi sa labas kasi bawal. Pinapalabas na napigilan namin yung corruption timely dahil sa wala pa sinasabi ng ang bayad dyan maging anuman pera na cold cash or papel lang yan, hindi yan magpadala ng pera doon, ng papel yan sa bangko yan, that it will be credited sa account kung sinong manufacturer. Hindi walang hawak ng pera dyan. Actually. Kaya dyan ako kasi walang nakuha. And they're still trying to prick the brains of Galvez, looking for something which is not there at all.
The Philippines aims to secure 148 million doses of vaccines from several companies to inoculate an initial 50 to 70 million Filipinos this year, with the first doses of China's Sinovac expected to arrive by February. Last month, Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan raised the possibility of corruption in vaccine procurement after the government failed to secure the delivery of 10 million vaccines from U.S. drug maker Pfizer as early as January. Pangilinan, who spearheaded the move to conduct convene the Senate Committee of the Whole hearing on the government's COVID-19 vaccination program, said that the government should be transparent in its plans for vaccine procurement to ensure that not a single peso is wasted or corrupted. To date, the government has signed term sheet agreements with U.S. drug maker Novavax to supply the Philippines with 30 million doses of vaccine, as well as Moderna, 20 million doses, and AstraZeneca, 17 million doses. However, the government has yet to sign a term sheet agreement with Pfizer.
West of Bangkok, the Sakon Shrimp Center market undergoes a large-scale cleanup. It has been closed since mid-December after several vendors tested positive for coronavirus. The seafood market outbreak was responsible for a second wave of infections across Thailand that has resulted in about 9,450 cases so far.
And it's very noisy this way. Oh. ก็งานนั้นไม่ได้ถามกันที่ค่าให้บริจาคมาก็กินไปครับผมที่ค่าให้มาเนี่ยพักอะไรข้าวสารมาม่าอย่างเงี้ยก็กินไปผมติดหรือเปล่าคนนั้นติดหรือเปล่าใครๆก็ไม่รู้เลยตอนนี้แล้วก็คัดออกแล้วก็เราก็ดีใจนะครับตอนนี้ก็เราก็ดีใจเป็นยังไงเราดีใจยังไงเพราะคัดออกมาแล้วก็เราก็สะอาดแล้วเราก็ทำงานได้
In a related news, Thailand recorded 914 new COVID-19 cases following mass testing in Samut Sakhon, the province where the current outbreak began in mid-December last year. In a statement from a Burnama report, Samut Sakhon Public Health Office said of the 914 new cases, 844 were through active case detection, 760 migrant workers and 84 Thais, while another 70 cases were those seeking treatment at hospitals. Now, this will be included in tomorrow's tally. It said, quote, to date, 6,555 COVID-19 cases have been reported in the province since mid-December. Meanwhile, the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, or the CCSA, Assistant Spokesman Dr. Apisamay Sri Rangsan said Thailand planned to test at least 60,000 people this week in Samut Sakhon to halt the spread of the virus in the kingdom. She also said the authorities, including private hospitals, would conduct active case detection at factories, dormitories, markets, and communities in Samut Sakhon, a province south of Bangkok. Meanwhile, senior health official Dr. Sopon Mekton said the vaccination program in the kingdom would start in the third week of February when the first batch of 50,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford arrived.
A Russian social media star with millions of followers has been kicked out of Bali for holding a party on the Indonesian holiday island that broke virus rules, authorities said Monday. Sergei Kosenko's deportation comes days after Bali officials sent a gay American couple home after the women called the island queer-friendly in tweets that went viral and encourage foreigners to come and stay there during the pandemic. Kosenko, 33, was put on a plane bound for Moscow on Sunday and would be banned from returning for at least 6 months. We took administrative action against Sergei in the form of deportation, said Valley Justice official Jamaruli Manihuro. Kosenko, who has nearly 5 million followers on Instagram, made headlines in December after he posted a video of himself and a woman driving a motorbike off a dock. Immigration officials moved against him after he posted another video of a party he held this month at a local hotel, which breached health protocols banning large gatherings, authorities said. More than 50 people were in attendance despite the restrictions. Kosenko also had misused his visitor visa by doing business while on the island, they added. Kosenko is from Smolensk, a city west of Russia capital, according to social media, where he blasted his deportation as outrageous.
Myanmar's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, alongside health workers, will be among the first to receive the COVID-19 vaccine this week. Numbers of new cases have shown signs of trending downward, but the civilian leader warned against complacency in her New Year's address. Swathes of the country remain under partial lockdown, even if enforcement has been lax in a developing nation where many face a stark choice between following regulations or feeding their families. A first batch of 1.5 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine Covishield arrived in Yangon International Airport. The consignment is also a gift from India to Myanmar to assist in the latter's fight against COVID-19 pandemic.
Shangri-La's Boracay Resort and Spa was closed for disinfection starting Monday after a number of guests finished their holiday until Sunday. A company spokesman confirmed to the Business Mirror that the hotel was now empty of guests and that all remaining guests checked out yesterday. This was all done hand in hand with the DOT, or Department of Tourism, who was fully aware of the numbers. The Aklan Provincial Government had ordered a 5-day closure of the resort after 15 of the resort workers were found to be positive with the novel coronavirus, which causes COVID-19. The sprawling cash resort located in Barangay Yapak said, however, it was not accepting guests from January 22 to 28. According to a report by the Business Mirror, sources said 388 hotel workers at Shang Boracay were swabbed, but many of them, including the 15 found COVID positive, were immediately put to work instead of quarantining while waiting for their test results. The company's spokesman said, however, I quote, "We were not told by the provincial health officer to quarantine the workers." The spokesman insisted with regards to the next steps after our colleagues undergo RT-PCR testing, the resort complies fully with the guidelines provided by the authorities. The spokesman reiterated, after being notified of the test results, affected colleagues were all placed in self-isolation accordance with guidelines from the authorities, and we are supporting them in any way we can during this period. The spokesman underscored Saturday, the well-being of our guests and colleagues is our top priority. Last December, Discovery Shores Boracay was also found to have one COVID-positive worker, though the DOT, Department of Tourism, said the worker did not interact with any guests.
events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Namayani ang galing ng second-time qualifiers na sina Willie Cordovales, Maris Mitra at ang callbacker na si Ken Fraser. Isa sa kanila ang maaaring makatapat ng Luntayo siblings sa semifinals. Kung sino yan, let's find out as we begin the battle for the monthly finals. Ito po ang biggest talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito po ang Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 Singing Edition.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. A U.S. aircraft carrier group sailed into the South China Sea on a so-called freedom of navigation exercise, the first routine operation in the region under new President Joe Biden. China's foreign ministry spokesman called the routine U.S. exercises a show of force and not too conducive to the peace and stability of the region.
美国频繁地派舰机进入南海活动，炫耀武力，不利于地区局势的和平与稳定。
Led by the USS Theodore Roosevelt, the carrier strike group entered the area Saturday. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said the same day Taiwan reported multiple Chinese jets and bombers had flown into its air defense zone. Beijing lays claims to nearly all the South China Sea, despite Taiwan, the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, and Vietnam also saying parts belong to them. The South China Sea is a strategic waterway and also believed to have valuable oil and gas deposits. Beijing has moved aggressively to turn reefs into artificial islands capable of hosting military planes, angering nations which also stake claims in the area. The U.S. operation comes days after Washington said its commitment to Taiwan is rock solid. The first comments from the Biden administration on the democratic island. Taiwan split from China at the end of a civil war in 1949 and exists under the constant threat of invasion by the mainland, whose leaders have vowed to one day take it. Beijing balks at any official contacts with Taiwan and tries to keep the island diplomatically isolated. The U.S. remains Taiwan's most important unofficial ally, however, is bound by an act of Congress to sell it weapons to defend itself. President Donald Trump embraced warmer ties with the island as he feuded with China over trade, and his successor is also expected to remain tough on the region.
Here in the Philippines, President Duterte on Monday remembered the heroism of the 44 Special Action Force or SAF troops who were killed in a botched counterterrorism operation in Mamasapano, Maguindanao 6 years ago, saying that the country owed their families a debt of gratitude that cannot be repaid. In a message during the observance of the National Day of Remembrance, Duterte described the death of the 44 SAF troops as a, quote, painful yet necessary reminder that the struggle to rid the country of militants come with negative consequences. The president said the country lost more than just police officers, but also family and friends during the deadly clash with Moro rebels and their armed allies. Addressing their families, he expressed appreciation for the sacrifices made by the 44 SAF troops. On January 25, 2015, SAF commandos carried out a law enforcement operation against two high-value targets, Malaysian terrorist Zulkifli bin Hur, alias Marwan, and terrorist Abdul Basit Usman. The SAF commandos were able to kill Marwan, but failed to get Usman, who was later killed in another operation. On their way out, a firefight occurred, which eventually trapped 45 SAF commandos, with only one surviving after swimming on a creek and hiding on bushes on his way out. On February 2017, the president, through Proclamation number 164, declared January 25 of every year as the Day of National Remembrance for the heroic sacrifice of SAF 44. 8 months later, the Office of the Ombudsman, then led by Conchita Carpio Morales, filed graft and usurpation of authority charges against former President Benigno Aquino III for allowing then Philippine National Police Chief Alan Purisima to play a major role in the operation despite being under preventive suspension. However, in June 2019, Ombudsman Samuel Martires moved to withdraw the cases filed against Aquino, saying he found no sufficient ground and evidence to charge him for graft and usurpation of official functions.
The Philippine Navy has started the final inspection of BRP Antonio Luna, or the FF-151, the country's prospective second missile-capable frigate in Ulsan, South Korea. For verification or validation of the contractor's strict compliance to the agreed technical specifications and build specifications, TS and BS, in building and equipping PN Frigate 2. Navy Public Affairs Office Chief Commander Benjo Negranza said Tuesday the final inspection started on January 25th and will end on the 30th. If found compliant, the Navy will issue a certificate of final acceptance to South Korean shipbuilder Hyundai Heavy Industries before the inspecting team flies back to Manila, Negranza said. Initial reports from Navy representatives headed by Captain Sergio Bartolome said the frigate is almost 100% finished and has satisfactorily passed harbor and sea trials. The BRP Antonio Luna is a modern naval warship capable of surface, subsurface, air, and electronic warfare using state-of-the-art electronic sensors, long-range missiles, acoustic-guided torpedoes, and an embarked anti-submarine helicopter. It is expected to be delivered and turned over the Navy this first quarter of 2021. The first frigate, BRP Jose Rizal, or the FF-150, was delivered and subsequently commissioned last July 10. BRP Antonio Luna's keel laying on May 23, 2019, coincided with the launch of BRP Jose Rizal, or FF-150. The contract for the BRP Jose Rizal and the BRP Antonio Luna was placed at 16 billion Philippine peso with another contractor for the BRP Jose Rizal and BRP Antonio Luna. And for weapon systems and munitions.
Indonesia has seized an Iranian tanker and Panamanian vessel suspected of illegally transferring oil in the Southeast Asian nation's waters, according to authorities on Monday. The crude oil tankers, Iranian-flagged Mount Horse and Panamanian-flagged Mount Freya, were spotted Sunday off Kalimantan, Indonesia's section of Borneo Island, and were later seized after the crew failed to respond to radio calls, according to authorities. The crew were suspected of a string of violations, including failing to display the vessel's national flags, turning off their identification systems to avoid detection, and illegally transferring oil, the Indonesian Maritime Security Agency said. Iran has previously been accused of trying to conceal its oil sales to avoid crippling U.S. sanctions. And Vietnam's twice-a-decade political transition begins Tuesday with the Communist Party poised to select its future leaders who will have to contend with an increasingly assertive China and ramped-up trade tensions with the U.S. The country's party general secretary, as well as 3 other key leadership pillars, are up for grabs at the Congress in Hanoi, which takes place largely behind closed doors and runs until February 2. Nguyen Phu Trong, the Communist Party chief, who has also served as president since 2018, is vying for another term as general secretary, according to analysts. He's not expected to continue holding both leadership posts simultaneously. But another stint in pole position for 76-year-old Trong, a pro-China conservative, would be a boost for his high-profile anti-corruption campaign that has swept through the party, according to police and armed forces. Another contender to remain in a key post is Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc, who has focused on the country's economic growth and integration, securing a number of international trade deals. The 66-year-old, tipped by analysts to now take the presidency, has also steered the country's robust response to the coronavirus pandemic. Trade tensions with the U.S. will also be high on the priority list after Washington accused Hanoi of currency manipulation last month. Now, despite the challenging international outlook, the new leadership will aim to leverage the economic and political advantage from its successful handling of the coronavirus epidemic, according to observers. The country has recorded just over 1,500 cases and 35 deaths.
David Penguin Chiwarak, a leader of the youth-led democracy movement in Thailand, rallies in front of ASEAN Bioscience, a company owned by the Crown Property Bureau, which was chosen by the government to be the sole manufacturer of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines in the country. The deal is seen by many who favor reform of the monarchy as a way for King Vajiralongkorn to regain his falling popularity by being the first distributor of vaccines in the kingdom. CM Bioscience has never produced any types of vaccines before, Parit Chiwarak said, surrounded by media and onlookers. This is like allowing unlicensed pilot to fly a plane. How could we know if the plane will crash or not? Billionaire Thai opposition figure Thanathorn Juangrongruangkit, founder of the now dissolved Future Forward Party, is facing legal action over a video he posted a week ago criticizing the government's vaccine strategy.
แต่อย่างที่เห็นพี่น้องทราบข้อมูลดังต่อไปนี้ว่า3ประเทศที่ผมได้กล่าว
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. open for business, from vision to action.
Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
Welcome back. New UN data on the economic impact of COVID-19 has confirmed what many have been thinking. Workers haven't been hit like this in generations. According to the ILO, people trying to earn a living suffered massively last year after the coronavirus started spreading globally early last year. ILO Director General Guy Ryder told journalists that the impact has been 4 times worse than the last major financial crisis over a decade ago. Let's listen in.
21 and perspective.
Okay, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with this news right after this short break.
Sa mundong waring walang puwang para sa kanilang pagmamahalan, sapat pa ang tibok ng kanilang mga puso upang bumuo ng daigdig nilang sarili. Inihahandog ng Eagle Broadcasting Corporation ang kauna-unahang romantic teleserye ng Net25. Ang Daigdig Ko'y Ikaw.
Sa mundo.
Tuwing Sabado, 8:08 ng gabi, dito lamang sa Net25.
At ako'y laging sa'yo hanggang magpakailanman.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
It's time to take one step further and face the impossible. Time to search the unknown and fight for the truth. Time to overcome boundaries and connect the world. It's time for DW News.
All right, welcome back. New UN data on the economic impact of COVID-19 has confirmed what many have been thinking, that workers haven't been hit like this in generations. According to the ILO, people trying to earn a living suffered massively in 2020 after the coronavirus started spreading globally early last year. ILO Director General Guy Ryder told journalists that the impact has been 4 times worse than the last major financial crisis over a decade ago. Let's listen in.
What we try to do this time is to look back at the year that's just finished, 2020, and really measure the damage, if I can put it like that. And the damage is very severe. A loss of working hours of 8.8% of total, 255 million jobs, full-time equivalents lost. Big hit, almost as big as 8.3% this time, to labour income. So the damage is enormous. Unevenly distributed between regions and between different sectors of the workforce, and generally the most vulnerable, the hardest hit. And then we're looking forward to 2021 and the perspectives for recovery. I think we've all started this new year in the hope, maybe expectation, that things are going to get better. We lay out 3 scenarios of recovery for 2021, baseline, optimistic, pessimistic. Perhaps the bad news in all of this is, even on the most optimistic assumptions, we're not going to get back to the starting point. We're not going to recover all of the jobs and working time that has been lost. And the point we try to make in all of this is how well we do depends very much on the policies that we adopt. Obviously, the trajectory going forward of the pandemic matters enormously, but we do need to put in place policies for a human-centered recovery. We need to keep macroeconomic policies very expansionary. We need to target those who are most in need of assistance, look at the sectors of the workforce that have been hardest hit. We need to keep, or actually to improve, international solidarity, so those countries with the least means to invest in recovery get the support that they need, and you would expect this in the ILO, we place a very high value on social dialogue, the cooperation of governments with trade unions and employers' organizations to get the right answers, to get the right policies, and ones that have broad acceptance around the world of work.
Younger workers were also far more likely to lose jobs, with employment loss among 15 to 24-year-olds at 8.7% globally, compared with 3.7% for older workers. Many young people also put off trying to enter the labor market given the complicated conditions last year. The ILO found, warning that there was truly an all-too-real risk of a lost generation. The report also showed that the uneven impact of different economic, geographic, and labor market sectors. It highlights concerns of a K-shaped recovery, whereby those sectors, and workers hit hardest could be left behind in the recovery, leading to increasing inequality unless corrective measures are taken. The worst affected sector has been accommodation and food services, where employment declined by more than 20% on average, followed by retail and manufacturing. In contrast, employment in information and communication and finance and insurance increased in the second and third quarters of 2020. Marginal increases were also seen in mining, quarrying, and utilities. While there is still a high degree of uncertainty, the latest projections for 2021 show that most countries will experience a relatively strong recovery in the second half of the year as vaccination programs take effect.
Asian markets sank into the red Tuesday following the previous day's healthy run-up, with sentiment jolted by the prospect that Joe Biden's huge stimulus could be watered down and not even be passed for several weeks.
Vice President Harris and I just received a briefing from...
Investors have been on a buying spree since November, when Biden won the presidency and vaccinations began to be authorized, with the usual support also coming from central bank support and government spending. But while the general feeling on trading floors is of optimism about the long-term outlook, confidence is being tested by surging virus infections and deaths, lockdowns, and problems in rolling out inoculations. The biggest driver of the market rally in recent weeks has been hope for Biden's $1.9 trillion economic rescue plan. But there is a growing concern that it could be whittled down in congressional negotiations, with Republicans and even some Democrats concerned about its size, particularly in the wake of a $900 billion deal passed at the end of last month. Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the bill would not likely be ready until March, just as benefits from the previous package wind down. While the S&P 500 and Nasdaq both ended the new record highs on Wall Street, the Dow slipped. The Asian traders were in a selling mood Tuesday, with Hong Kong and Manila all losing more than 1%, while there were also sizable losses in Tokyo, Shanghai, Singapore, Taipei, and Jakarta. Wellington and Bangkok rose. Sydney was closed for holiday. Seoul also shed more than 1% after data showed the South Korean economy suffered its worst year since 1998, when the Asian financial crisis rocked the region.
Meanwhile, the Department of Trade and Industry assured continued support for entrepreneurs to help their businesses thrive and survive amid the pandemic. In a message to reporters on Tuesday, DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez said the IATF will follow the wisdom of the president. This came after President Duterte recalled the decision of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to allow people aged 10 to 14 years old to go outside their residences in areas under modified general community quarantine starting February 1. Lopez said Duterte asked the IATF to further observe the situation as the UK SARS-CoV-2 variant is already present in the country. Lopez added that the IATF can implement the adjustment in age restriction once they can control the spread of the new COVID-19 variant. He added that strict compliance with minimum health standards should continue while improving COVID-19 proofing of establishments to enhance consumer confidence. The DTI and the National Economic and Development Authority recommended the easing of age restrictions from 15 to 65 years old to 10 to 65 years old to allow more economic activities, particularly spending from family activities such as shopping and dining. Now, Lopez earlier mentioned that family expenditure accounts for 30 to 50% of sales in commercial areas, adding that this would help businesses to improve their sales and prevent them from shutting down their operations.
House Deputy Speaker Lauren Legarda of Antique has filed a resolution urging the Climate Change Commission, or CCC, to submit the Philippines' climate pledge to the Paris Agreement. In House Resolution 1494, she called for the country's Paris Climate Pledge, formerly known as a Nationally Determined Contribution, or NDC, to convey the highest possible climate ambition in reflection of the government's strong commitment to contribute to global efforts to advance climate justice. In a report in the Business Mirror, she said, "It is unfortunate that we begin the new year with the news that the Philippines failed to submit its nationally determined contribution to the Paris Climate Agreement and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. All parties to the agreement and the convention were asked to submit their NDCs last December 31, 2020. Meanwhile, the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities, or ICSC, lauded Legarda's filing of House Resolution 1494. Rex Barrett, head of ICSC's climate governance team, said the country needs an ambitious climate action plan that actually reflects major changes underway in the economy. The Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities is a Manila-based international policy group advancing climate resilience and low-carbon development.
And finally in our news, the critically endangered Siamese crocodile has been spotted for only the second time in a decade at Thailand's largest national park, according to photos released on Saturday. The freshwater reptile, snapped by camera traps, sunning itself at Kayeng Krachan National Park near the Thai border with Myanmar, was once ubiquitous across Southeast Asia, but its numbers have plummeted in the region. It is currently listed as critically endangered on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List. National park officials estimate only about 20 remain in the wild because of hunting and habitat loss. But on Saturday, the Nature Reserve shared a rare spot of good news. The crocodile, never seen before by officials, was captured by cameras slithering out of the water before it parked itself on the riverbank, open-jawed under the sun. The footage was captured in December and is proof that Kayeng Krachan National Park is an important area for wildlife conservation, according to Manun Prusongnern, a park manager who works with the NGO World Conservation Society. The croc is estimated to be about 3 meters long, or 9.8 feet. Adding that this is only the second sighting of the species in the past decade. The Siamese crocodile is a predator, but it is one of the first victims of environmental corrosion So the sighting is also evidence that the national park's environment is still pristine, according to Manun. The endangered crocodile is highly sought after by poachers who supply eggs and adult reptiles to farms around the region, where their skins are turned into luxury belts, shoes, and handbags. Thank you very much, Shirley, for joining me today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Alma, and to everyone. And that's all the news in the ASEAN region. This has been Charlene Navaja. We live in interesting times.
And I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.